Okay, this is my squeezing machine. When I got into puberty, I started having horrendous panic attacks and anxiety attacks. When the hormones hit, the anxiety started. You know, imagine what it was like when you did your first really, really big job interview, how nervous you were, or you took your teaching licensing exam, how nervous you were. Now imagine if you felt that way all the time. My nervous system was constantly vigilant, constantly always looking for danger. All right, now, I'm going to give you a big panic attack of how I felt. We're going to lock the doors of this convention center. We'll bring in some portable toilets. We'll bring in nice catered food, and you are going to spend 24 hours in here after we've dumped 100 rattlesnakes, cobras, and everything else poisonous into this convention center. Okay, now imagine how you'd feel. That's the way my anxiety was all the time. All the time. Looking for those snakes, looking for danger. You know, the system in the brain that protects animals against predators, and we have that same system too, is turned on in overdrive. Always looking for danger. It's now controlled with antidepressant medication. And I have been on antidepressant medication for over 25 years. And it was like just like magic for me. You know, there's a lot of controversies about antidepressants like Prozac and what they do for depression. Well, they ought to be renamed anti-stress medications, because where they really work, drugs like Prozac and Zoloft, is to get rid of the panic attacks and the anxiety. The Veterans Administration is using drugs like Prozac on war veterans for the post-traumatic stress syndrome. They work on anxiety. But you see, my anxiety had to do with a biological defect in my brain. But using this pressure machine that I made also helped calm me down. Deep pressure is calming. Another calming thing is exercise. We've got to get these kids exercising. Aerobic exercise. Get the blood pumping. Get them to sweat some. The research on exercise is very clear. You want evidence-based, science-based research? There's hundreds of papers on the benefits of exercise for the brain. Exercise is good for the brain. Exercise will calm you down. It's well documented. Fear is the main emotion in autism. Definitely still my main emotion. I wouldn't be here today if I hadn't discovered antidepressants back when I was in my early 30s. Okay, there's a rear view picture of the squeeze machine, and I got the idea of the squeeze machine from a cattle squeeze chute out on my aunt's ranch. I would have never come up with this. I would have never gone into my cattle career if I hadn't gone to my aunt's ranch. And Mother made me go when I was 15. She said I had two choices, 2 weeks or all summer. Now again, no surprises. No surprises. I knew about this trip months in advance. I had pictures of the ranch. Surprises cause panic. No surprises. Gotta know about the trip, beforehand. There's a teacher there working with a child with pressure, and look at how she can also work on speech therapy right at the same time. Got the kid there with some pressure, some deep pressure. Sometimes this helps the auditory system to work better. It's sort of like, how your cell phone just won't, your mobile phone just won't work. You're inside the convention center here, and then you walk over the window and it works. When you do things like pressure, it sort of like helps the signal get through. How does it work? Nobody knows. I also want to emphasize, this doesn't work on everybody. Some kids are pressure seekers, others are not. I cannot emphasize enough the variability. It is not one size fits all. But this is something worth trying. And remember, 20 minutes on and then stop it. The pressure effect only lasts for about 15 or 20 minutes. And then you've got to take it off for half an hour. And then you can try it again. But you can't keep it on like all day. There's a kid being swung in a swing. You're getting pressure from the net, slow swinging. You put it on for a while, do it for a little while, and then you got to stop. Now, not every child's going to respond well to swinging. Try singing. Also try singing to the child. Sometimes singing will work, because singing is a different circuit in the brain. Try swinging. Try some speech therapy right while you're swinging. And there's a little kid with a weighted vest. 20 minutes on, then you take it off for a while. But it doesn't work on everybody. Unfortunately, there's a paper on PubMed that says weighted vests don't work. Well, the problem is, if you take 20 kids with autism, it may only work on 3 or 4 of them. But you're talking about a simple thing you can try. Also, some kids sitting on a ball, which makes them constantly balanced, helps to prevent fidgeting. I think it's important to desensitize young autistic kids to touch so that they'll like being hugged. Desensitizing to deep pressure is actually quite easy to do. What's difficult is the scratchy clothes. You're not going to get me desensitized to wearing, I'm not going to wear wool against my skin. But the deep pressure, you see, because I wanted to feel that nice feeling of being hugged, but it was just too overwhelming, just way too overwhelming. We have got to work on employment. I have a book out on the book table, Developing Talents on Employment, and we're not doing enough on this. I'm seeing too many kids graduate from college. They've never mowed a lawn. They've never had any job experience. I had lots of job experience long before I graduated from college. And when I was in college, I did an internship at a research lab. I also did an internship at a summer program for children with autism. These are very important work experiences. You got to get kids out seeing interesting workplaces. Get them out doing stuff. The Wall Street Journal's got lots of good social information in it. I read that all the time. I follow all the little things in there about, how to behave in the workplace. But there's not enough emphasis on this. I went and looked up my employment book, Developing Talents, plus some other people's employment books on Amazon, and I looked at rankings, my book and others. Then I took social books. I looked at rankings. Well, the rankings are way up high on the social books and they're way down low on the employment books. Well, I'm not saying that social isn't important, but you might wonder, where are all the old Aspergers? I can tell you they're all employed. Employed, and they managed to keep the jobs. And a lot of it had to do with how their upbringing. And a lot of they all were taught work skills when they were really young. Now, when I was in high school goofing around and not studying, I was getting lots of work skills. Here's our ugly old Skeeto house. And then you can see after I put paneling on it, I put knotty pine tongue and groove siding on it, put white trim on it, made it all pretty looking. I couldn't decorate it with cattle. That wouldn't please other people. Now, of course, I got obsessed with it, but I did work that other people appreciated. Really important thing. Okay, get kids into things like these Lego Mindstorm clubs, where they can build little robots. But the thing is, they've got to be taught. The robots got to do an assigned task. They can't just make anything they want. Robot has to do some assigned task. Maybe one child programs the computer, another kid will do make the mechanical parts of it. They've got to learn how to work in teams. If they can't learn these skills, so no computer company is going to hire them. But the kids that get a few, social skills bashed into them, they're working for the tech companies. And what I have found in the tech companies is I've done talks out in Silicon Valley, parents apprentice their kids into these jobs. And it starts when the kids are like 8 years old and the parents start teaching programming. At a really young age. They're just kind of apprenticed in. That's how they get into those jobs. Of course, I always like to show my drawings off, especially when people think I'm really weird. And here's one of my drawings done in SketchUp, which is a free program you can get on the internet for 3D drawing. And you can just type Google SketchUp into Google and find out about that. But again, the child should be doing assignments with this. And there was one kid that all he wanted to do was draw pictures of Elmo. You know how they got him to stop doing that? They put an Elmo picture up on the corner of his computer screen, and they said Elmo could watch while he drew pictures of other things. Again, they were still using the motivation of the fixation. Community colleges, all kinds of wonderful career things. But the kids have got to learn it's a grown-up privilege to go to community college, and they cannot be disrupting classes. I had a rule, 1 question per class. Then you see the teacher afterwards. There's all kinds of things out there. You got to just find them. People are not very creative about looking into other things. When I was in high school, my science teacher showed a movie about optical illusions, and it showed this Ames distorted room. I got absolutely fascinated with the Ames distorted room. I got obsessed with it. And my teacher said, I want you to figure out how to build one. And it's a room that's actually made in perspective. One person looks twice as big as the other. There was no internet to look it up on. I spent 6 months trying to figure out how to make this. That's a teacher getting a student motivated. But if I hadn't seen the movie, I wouldn't have got interested in it. You got to get them out and show them a lot of interesting stuff. Well, there's a really cool remote-controlled camera they used on the movie set, and I can tell you right now, there were Asperger's all over that movie set. And they were all freelancers, all undiagnosed. These movie companies don't really have many employees. The studios hire the big stars, but everybody else, like the lighting man, the electrician, the sound people, the scenery builders, they're all freelancers. And there were tons of Asperger's. How did they get into these jobs? They knew somebody. The back door. We got to get better at finding the back door. There is a back door. Like, I couldn't go to vet school because my SATs weren't good enough. But PhD programs, the back door is still open. You got to find professors willing to work with you. And you contact those professors and show a portfolio of work. There is a back door. Okay, and there's Stuffy, the fake steer, and the whole crew. And it was very interesting going down there, because it was very interesting also looking at this just from a career standpoint. Because for most of these jobs, there was no barrier of entry. Most of those people just sort of fell into a lot of these jobs. There's the plant where I started my career. And how did I get into that plant? I met the wife of their insurance agent. You never know who can open the back door up. But I had a problem with anger. Well, that doesn't work very well at work. And what I had to do, when I was in high school, after getting a big fist fight in my new school, they took away horseback riding, and I had to switch from anger to crying. I switched emotions. I couldn't modulate it, so I switched. Well, I have to say, and I had social problems with these plants, and I had them. I had places I go hide, like under the stairs, electrical room, cattle catwalk, cattle feed bunk, different places that I went. But if I hadn't switched from anger to crying, I wouldn't have had a career. It's that simple. And I've had parents say to me, well, my teenage boy cries. I said, be thankful he cries. Crybabies can keep employment. You throw things, no. If I had had one anger outburst in this plant, it would have been all over. There's a zero tolerance because of the knives. There wouldn't have been any career. All right, let's look at what the policy is for employees fired. There's a fight, two people get in a fight, they fire both of them. Plant policy. Every plant has that policy. Okay, jobs for visual thinkers. What I do with equipment is what would now be called industrial design. It's a college major called industrial design. You take a product like the iPod. The industrial designer designs the look and feel of it. The engineers do the insides to make it work. You see, to design a product like that, you have engineers, but you also have industrial designers. The person who designed the iPod look and feel actually was an art major. Fine arts training. How about graphic arts, drafting, auto mechanics? These are all jobs of good visual thinking, electrician, plumbers. There's a shortage of those kind of jobs right now. Fixing computers, photography, training animals. Architecture would be another good field. You got to get into careers where you're using the area of strength. And these jobs are listed all in my employment book too. How about our pattern thinkers? How about math teacher, computer programmers, and engineers? They're your pattern thinkers. Physicists, statistics, chemistry. We got to be, getting into careers that, and the thing is, a lot of entry-level jobs require a lot of multitasking, which I can't do. High-level jobs, I don't have to do multitasking. I was designing facilities, so I didn't do any multitasking. I just sat there by myself doing the drawings. How about our verbal guys? I've been interviewed by a lot of journalists that I know are Asperger, verbal Aspergers. Speech therapy would be another good job. How about bookkeeping jobs, special education teacher? These would all be, good jobs for the verbal thinkers. Translation work. Library research jobs. Let's get creative, thinking about what they can do. We already discussed that stuff. Okay, how about people that have poor verbal skills? Well, jobs stocking shelves, a lot of factory work, shelving books in the library. a lot of outdoor jobs. Some of them love, lawn and garden equipment. What is something that they would like to do for a job? But then on the other hand, work is work. I just talked to somebody recently that said they had a job as a cashier. Now, cashier with an old-fashioned cash register, there's no way I could do that job. But with the new automated systems, she said the job was too easy and it was boring. I said, sometimes it's called work. And you shouldn't have quit that job just because it was boring. Now, obviously, a smart girl, I wouldn't want her being a cashier for the rest of her life. But she shouldn't have just quit that job because it was boring. It is called work.